Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It's our literature unit, and we're going to be talking about a memoir. A memoir is a book that has been written by somebody about their own personal experiences. Instead of calling it an autobiography, a memoir is a bit different. I love these kind of books myself. I love biographies. I like autobiographies. I like to learn about people's lives and what they went through. So a memoir is just a historical account or a biography written from personal knowledge, somebody who knows personally about what they're writing about. It's called Rocket Boys. This is a pretty familiar story, at least to a lot of foreigners, because there was a movie that came out many years ago called, what was it called? August what?
October Sky.
Oh, October Sky.
Yeah, it was based on this book, and it starred Jake Gyllenhaal and Chris Cooper.
I love Chris Cooper.
I think it came out in 1999, if I'm not mistaken, so it's quite old.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a movie that fathers like to see together with their sons. It's kind of got that father-son sort of narrative there. And, well, this is the book that started off that movie. It's called Rocket Boys. The movie has a different title, but it's basically the same thing, although they change things in movies sometimes for dramatic effect. But we're actually focusing on the book today. And again, as Stephanie said, it's a memoir. It's all about the start of the space race, which primarily took place between the Russians, the Soviet Union, and the USA. Nowadays, I guess it's the USA versus China.
So we're going to talk about the plot or the story first, and then day two we'll talk more about Homer Hickam Jr. He's the author, the guy that where this experience actually happened to him and in his family. So we're going to talk about his life a little bit more in day two. But first, we're going to read through day one.
Homer Sonny Hickam Jr. is a teenager in Colwood, West Virginia, U.S. in the 1950s. It's a poor, isolated town whose infrastructure is owned by a coal mining company. The boys of Colwood are expected to become coal miners like their fathers. The job is physically dangerous due to collapses and explosions in the mines, and economically risky because of the coal industry's decline. For these reasons, Sonny's mother desperately wants him to choose another profession. In 1957, during the Cold War, the Soviet Union launches the Sputnik Satellite. Soon, American school curricula begin to emphasize mathematics, science, and technology to help the country compete in the space race. Inspired, Sonny decides to become a rocket engineer. He forms a rocket club with several other boys. After they accidentally blow up a fence, Sonny's father forbids him to continue. However, Sonny's mother secretly encourages her son to keep experimenting. Through much trial and error, the boys test a series of rocket designs and fuel mixtures. They independently study advanced mathematics to learn more about rocket mechanics. Although they struggle to purchase materials, they find each launch a learning experience for future designs. Soon they begin holding public launches with many people in attendance. Their chemistry teacher urges Sonny to enter the county science fair, which he wins. He goes on to win the state science fair and top prize in his category at the 1960 National Science Fair. The boys hold one final launch. To Sonny's surprise, his father attends and agrees to light the mechanism that launches the rocket. Impressed with the results, he ultimately shows his approval of Sonny's accomplishments. Okay, everybody, let's get to it. Let's discuss the contents of our lesson for today. It's our literature unit for the month of October, and the book we're focusing on is entitled Rocket Boys, which is a memoir of the start of the space race. We already covered the word memoir in our introduction, but again, it's just a personal account of someone's life. It's similar to an autobiography, but to me, an autobiography is more structured from the beginning of a person's life to the end. Whereas a memoir could be talking about just a certain time in that person's life.
Just a short period of time, huh?
Right, or it could be just jumping all over the place, however the writer wants to present it.
Right. So this is his memoir. We're learning here he had a nickname. His name was Homer Hickam Jr., but his nickname was Sonny, which is kind of used to be a popular nickname in America. I don't think it's that popular anymore, but it was at one point. He is a teenager, and he grew up in a town called Colwood, West Virginia, in the United States in the 1950s. It's a poor, isolated town where infrastructure is owned by a coal mining company whose infrastructure. So if a town's infrastructure is all owned by the coal mining company, it tells you that the coal mining company is very important to that small town. In West Virginia, there were a lot of coal mines. There still are some. It can be a very poor part of America. I had an old roommate from New York whose family was from West Virginia. And I went to see her family at one point, and I was really kind of shocked at how poor the town was. I'd never really experienced that before in America. But yeah, there are parts of America that have lost they've lost industries, and so there's no work, and it's hard for families to make ends meet, we would say. So this is a poor, isolated town. It's far away from bigger towns. And again, coal mining plays a big role there.
Again, it's a poor, isolated town, and the infrastructure, the roads, the power lines, etc., is owned by the coal mining company, and the boys of Colwood are expected to become coal miners like their fathers. So like father, like son, the boys are supposed to get a job in the coal mine just like dear old dad. That's what the company would like them to do, and the job is physically dangerous due to collapses and explosions in the mines, and economically risky because of the coal industry's decline. So, yeah, it's not a great career choice to become a coal miner. I'm sure these people work very, very hard, and they are deserving of respect for doing that job. But still, it's a very dangerous job because sometimes the mine will collapse. There'll be a cave in, and if that happens, you could get stuck in there. You might die. They might never be able to rescue you. There also might be explosions in there because gases build up in there, and there's not enough oxygen. And, of course, the job is risky because you might lose your job. If something's risky, you don't know if you're going to be successful with it. Other jobs, like civil servant jobs, are pretty stable. You know, they're not very risky. You're probably going to have that job all the way until you're about 60 years old, and then you can retire with a nice pension. But if you're a coal miner, not necessarily.
Yeah, it also was really hard on their health because they would breathe in, the coal from the mines. And wow, a lot of these miners had very short lives. So, yeah, it was a tough way to make a living, but we were grateful for them because of coal, we had energy. And energy was really important, especially before we discovered, gasoline and oil and other things like that. The world was running on coal. So there is a coal industry decline. At one point in our history, people decided this is dirty energy. It's really bad for the environment. And so they started closing coal mines, which really hurt a lot of those coal mining families. So for this reason, Sonny's mother desperately wants him to choose another profession. Most moms want things that are better for their sons and daughters than they had themselves. And that's what Sonny's mother was hoping for her own son. To want something desperately just means you want something so bad, you'll do almost anything for it. So if you're desperate, you might be low on cash, low on food. You might not feel like you have any friends. You can be very desperate. That's the adjective form. Of course, this is the adverb form. So she desperately, and then verb, she desperately wants something. And she just wants him to choose a less risky profession, a profession where he'll have a long life and make lots of money. Moms all want that for their kids.
Yeah, to be a civil servant and maybe even a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or something like that. So in 1957, during the Cold War, the Soviet Union launches the Sputnik Satellite. You may have heard of the Cold War. It was a war between the United States and Europe versus the Soviet Union. They never really fought each other in battles or anything like that, but they were still enemies, so we call it the Cold Cold War, and then they had the space race, and the Soviet Union, the USSR, were early winners, basically, because they launched the Sputnik Satellite. That was the first satellite that was sent into space.
Yeah, I remember that being a big deal. I wasn't born yet, but everyone thought, ooh, the Soviet Union was the first to reach space. So it was a big moment, especially to the Russians or the Soviets. At that point, they were all Soviets. And to the Americans, because we were in this race to space first, or space race, you could say. If you launch something, we use this verb to set something in motion. It could be a boat, or maybe you launch a business, so you start a new business. If you launch a rocket, you set that rocket off and it goes right up into space. So you could launch a rocket, launch a business, launch a campaign. If you're a politician and you want to run for political office, you launch a campaign, or you start those activities that get people to know about you and want to vote for you when election day rolls around. So yeah, they launched the Sputnik satellite, and that was a big deal, and it happened during the Cold War.
Right, and the United States felt like they had been slapped on the face. My goodness, we can't put up with that. What are we going to do? Well, we'll find out what the Americans' response was in just a second, but right now we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们这2天的文学单元要带大家来看一本小说，这本小说叫做 Rocket Boys 火箭男孩，它其实是作者的一个回忆录哦。那么火箭男孩的主角到底是谁呢？我们在说故事的时候一定要先谈主角是谁，什么时间，在哪里，发生了什么样的事情。所以在第一段的第一句我们就看到主角 Homer Sonny Hickam Jr. 这个呢，他其实是一个 teenager， 他的时间发生是在哪里呢？是在1950年代的时候，地点呢则是在美国的 West Virginia 西维吉尼亚州。然后再更 focus 一点是在 Coldwood， 因为这个小镇呢，它其实蛮贫穷，而且与世隔绝，而且那个小镇的基础建设根本就是由一家煤矿公司所拥有的。同样在第一段第2句的地方，我们看到限定用法关系子句哦，先行词就是这个 a poor isolated town， 后面的 whose 到句尾可以左右挂号起来。我们其实在关系词当中还蛮少看到所有格的，在这里的 whose 就是 of which， 那么是谁的呢？指的就是先行词的这个小镇的内部的一些基础建设，就是由一家矿产公司所拥有。为什么呢？因为在这个地方大家都在挖矿，所以很多的在那边长大的小孩子呢，可能就会觉得说，长大就跟爸爸一样就去当这个煤矿工人。可是因为非常的危险，physically dangerous， 而且煤矿产业当时也慢慢在衰落当中，所以在经济上也有一些风险 economically risky。 也就是这个原因我们主角 Sonny 他的母亲希望 Sonny 能够选择别的职业。同样在第一段看到第5句最后一个字 profession，Profession 这个字其实就是专业的意思，因为我们说职业好像就是工作 job J-O-B， 或者如果谈长期的一个志业会用 career， 如果我们特别谈专业的时候就会用 profession 这个字。所以这个 Sonny 的妈妈呢就会希望他不要再挖煤矿，当然挖煤矿也有很多的专业 profession， 希望能够选择别的一个专业或者是职业。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about the Rocket Boys. Rocket Boys was a memoir, and it was all about the start of the space race between the Soviet Union and the U.S. Before we left you, we were talking about the author of the memoir. His name is Homer Sonny Hickam Jr., And his background includes growing up in a place called West Virginia, a state on the east coast of the United States, the eastern part of the United States. And this is way back in the 1950s when he was a teenager. He's from a very poor, isolated town. And most of the folks there were coal miners, which is a really tough industry to work in. His father himself was a coal miner. It's very difficult work. It's dangerous. So many people have lost their lives in coal mining accidents. I went to an area in the UK where they did a lot of coal mining in the 1800s, early 1900s, and they have all these memorials to dead coal miners.
Oh, no.
So it's not just the U.S. Anywhere you mine coal, it's so dangerous that a lot of families, of course, have lost their dads and brothers in these coal mining accidents. Well, Sonny's mother, of course, who loves her boy, she doesn't want her son to be involved with coal mining and wants him to choose a different profession. At the same time, we're experiencing the Cold War where the Soviet Union and the U.S. are silently at war with each other. We're also in a race to get to the space or outer space first. Well, the Russians won that. The Soviet Union launched the Sputnik Satellite in 1957, so they were the first to get to space. And then after that happened, of course, Americans were like, we've got to beat those Soviets. So in American schools, the curricula, which is the plural form of the word curriculum, they began to emphasize in schools lots of math and science and technology or tech to help the country compete in the space race. Sadly, we no longer do that in America, and our math skills are really bad in the United States.
Are atrocious indeed. They're the laughing stock of the world.
We just came in last this last year.
Not good.
We're terrible.
It's probably hard to believe, but at one time, American mathematics skills were pretty good.
Yeah.
And they started to emphasize mathematics, science, and technology during the space race, during the Cold War. And they wanted the country to compete in the space race against the Soviet Union. Again, they launched Sputnik in 1957, and they sent Yuri Gagarin into space in 1961. So the Americans were really embarrassed there. And inspired, Sonny decides to become a rocket engineer. Remember, Sonny is Homer Jr., and they don't call him Homer because his dad's name is Homer too. So usually when that happens, the kid will have some other name. Like my grandfather had the same name as his father, Charles, but they called my grandfather Waldo using his middle name so they wouldn't mix the people up. So in this particular case, Sonny is the son of Homer Sr., and well, he wants to become a rocket engineer. He's inspired by the space race, and he wants to do his part.
I don't think I explained what curriculum is. Curriculum is just a list of courses you're required to take in order to graduate from a program. Whether it's junior high, high school, or college, they'll have different types of curricula. And curriculum, of course, is the singular form. So, yeah, they got really busy and they started focusing on math, science, and tech to try to keep up with the Soviets in the space race. So Sonny was inspired by all this, and he decides as a kid, as a teenager, to become a rocket engineer. So he forms a rocket club with several other boys, and they would get together after school, and instead of going to, say, like the football club or the debate club or, the music club or drama club, they would go off on their own, and they had their own rocket club, which sounds pretty fun, but also risky and dangerous. So they accidentally blow up a fence. If you blow something up, something explodes. So they blew up a fence, past tense is blew up, and Sonny's father then gets angry, and he forbids him to continue. If someone forbids you to do something, they ban you from doing it. They say, you can't never do this again. And sometimes, kids do things that are dangerous or stupid, and their parents will forbid them from doing that stupid thing again.
Yep, Homer Sr. said, Sonny, you can't do that anymore. I forbid you. You need to concentrate on your future career in the coal mines. But, of course, Sonny's mother secretly encouraged her son to keep on experimenting. Don't worry, son. You should keep on with that stuff. Just don't let your father find out about it. Now, here in the next paragraph here, it says, through much trial and error, the boys test a series of rocket designs and fuel mixtures. So, yes, you've got different rocket designs with aerodynamics designed to make them move through the air better and to get up higher in the atmosphere and to reach space. And, of course, you need to have fuel in those rockets in order to send them off into the wild blue yonder. So they try different mixtures of different chemicals, and they do a lot of experiments there.
We use that phrase trial and error a lot. If you're a baker and you like to bake things, sometimes baking can be very specific. It has to be very particular. You can't just add whatever you want. Baking is a science. So through trial and error, you might discover you need more flour, less salt, less baking soda, stuff like that. We use that phrase a lot. So they independently study advanced math. So they're learning separately, but they're all studying their math, and they learn more about rocket mechanics, how rockets work. And they struggle to purchase materials. I'm sure it's against the law to purchase some of the stuff they need. And they find each launch a learning experience for future design. So they keep growing in their knowledge. Soon they begin holding public launches. They invite people to come and see what they've accomplished. And a lot of people attend. Here we're using the word attendance as one of our vocabulary words. The attendance is just a word that means how many people are there to see something, how many are there as spectators, or maybe they're even participating. Church attendance, maybe you've got some festivals and you want to see how many people are going to come. You're trying to see what your attendance might be. So it's just actually the action of going somewhere and being there at an event or a place. Attendance. Yeah, the number of people present at a particular event would be, oh, what was the attendance at the carnival? What was the attendance at that rock concert?
Right, or if you're a rock singer and you're giving a concert, you hope that a record executive will be in attendance at your concert, and they'll offer you a contract after the concert. In this particular case, though, the chemistry teacher of the boys is very impressed with their efforts, and the chemistry teacher urges Sonny to enter the county science fair, which he wins. That's a tradition in the U.S. I'm sure it's common here to have science fairs where kids make these projects to show to people in a gathering, and then someone can win the science fair. And he goes on to win the state science fair with the top prize in his category at the 1960 National Science Fair.
Wow.
So, wow, he won the county one, the state one, and now the national one. He's a genius.
Oh, well, they worked hard for it. Remember, the boys hold one final launch. Remember, they have a rocket club. So, to Sonny's surprise, his father attends and agrees to light the mechanism that launches the rocket. When you say mechanism, it's just the system of parts that are working together in a machine. So, he actually is quite happy, I'm sure, that his father is attending, and his father wants to light the mechanism that launches that final rocket.
I guess you use fire there and you don't throw a switch. I don't know what they did there, but impressed with the results, he ultimately shows his approval of Sonny's accomplishments. So it took a while for his father to come around, but Homer Sr. eventually realized that his son has potential to become a rocket engineer instead of working in the coal mines. So that's kind of a nice thing. Sometimes fathers are stubborn and they don't change their minds about what they want their sons to do. Or now we've got mothers like tiger moms who want their kids to be, top of their class and to go to Harvard and stuff like that. So in this particular case, his father comes around and doesn't want his son to actually work in the coal mines, and the rest is history.
So when you get someone's approval, you're just getting them to accept that you've done something good. So if someone has your approval, it just means they're agreeing with what you're doing. They're satisfied with what you're doing. And I think kids all over the world want their parents' approval no matter what. So ends up being a good ending to his story, I would say. We're going to continue talking about Homer and his life, but first, we got to wrap up today's lesson. You'll have to join us for our next program. Right now, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
那么后来因为在就是经历了1957年开始有冷战期间然后苏联就开始先发射了这个人造卫星，然后接着美国学校的课程呢也就开始强调数学科学工业技术这些课程，就希望美国能够开始在这个太空竞赛当中能够竞争。所以在当时 Sunny 就被启发了，然后就决定呢要成为一个火箭工程师。同样在这一段的第3句我们看到有一个分词构句先看到的是一个 PP 叫做 inspired， 被启发。谁被启发呢？只要莫名其妙看到 ing 或 PP 开头，主词一定是逗点之后的那个人事物，所以逗点之后的主词 Sunny 才是被启发的主词。我们根据逻辑来去推断，这句话本来应该是 Because Sunny is inspired，因为 Sunny 受到了启发，逗点，所以 Sunny decides to become a rocket engineer， 所以他就决定成为火箭工程师。那么这样子的一个梦想决定了之后呢， Sunny 跟其他几个男生呢就组成了一个火箭俱乐部。可是有一次呢，他们不小心炸毁了一个 fence， 一个围篱，所以 Sunny 的父亲就禁止他继续。那母亲呢，则是一直不断的鼓励他继续尝试。当然，在经过了很多的 trial and error 之后，在很多尝试错误之后，我们才会学习，然后才会完成，才会成功。所以 trial and error 很重要。好，那么在很多的尝试错误之后，这些小男生呢，就测试了一系列的火箭燃料的混合啦，甚至学高等数学啦，来这个丰富他们火箭力学的知识。虽然材料是很难购得的，但是他们会觉得每一次发射火箭都是一种学习的经验，所以甚至是呢，化学老师也会鼓励他们呢，能够去参赛，能够得奖。所以接下来同样第3段的5、6句的地方，我们看到 win。后来呢，他们参赛都赢了，赢什么呢？我们会说在比赛当中得奖，但是在英文当中 win 这个字后面的受词可以直接是比赛。例如我们看到第3段第5句的地方，逗点之后有一个 which he wins， Sunny wins the county science fair。 那同样在第6句的地方，他也赢了，赢什么呢？Win the state science fair and top prize。 所以在英文当中 win 这个字的后面受词可以直接把那个比赛当成受词，就表示在比赛当中得奖。那么最后呢，小男生在最后一次的火箭发射的时候，居然 Sunny 的父亲有来帮忙这个点燃火箭的装置。言下之意就是说，父亲也开始肯定了 Sunny 他的学习，他的成功，所以这个故事其实是一个 happy ending。 不过第4段的第3句特别注意一下，也是一个分词构句 impressed with the results。 谁 was impressed 呢？我们看到逗点之后 he 这个所谓的 Sunny 的父亲，所以这个最后一段第4段的第3句的分词构句其实还原应该是 because he is impressed with the results， 逗点之后的 he， 这个 he 指的就是 Sunny 的父亲。因为 Sunny 的父亲对于结果非常的感到惊讶，非常的开心，所以最后就已经同意 Sunny 继续这样子的努力。我们明天还会对这个火箭男孩做更多的探讨哦。我是安娜，我们明天见。
That's it for today, everybody, but please join us again next time when we continue to talk about our featured work of literature for the month of October, Rocket Boys, a memoir of the start of the space race. Please join us then. We look forward to it. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.